So let's talk about target market. So your target market is whose problem can you solve? Who has a problem that you can solve? And you want to make that as narrow as possible. The smaller it is, the more specifically you can talk to those individuals. There's lots of terms for this, and when you get into the marketing world, you'll start to hear phrases like there's riches and niches. You've got to own your backyard. Specific is terrific. These types of phrases, they're all speaking to the same thing. And that's, you want to talk to a narrow group. Now, the only exception to that is I have had people that have asked me, like, well, how do I market to Bob Jones, who's the president of, United Capital or whatever? And it's like, well, you can't market to one person. And you can barely sell to one person. So when I say a target market, I mean a group of people that have some things in common. And you want to have as much in common as possible. So what problems can you solve for them? And then, so you want to keep this narrow. You want to keep this narrow because the more narrow it is, the more specific you can be. And the more specific you can be, the more you can focus your messaging. Back in the old days, of broadcast, that's the way they would always qualify their leads, was they would start out by saying, do you have this, are you a homeowner in the state of West Virginia? That would be like an old radio ad would start out that way. Well, that's a narrow market. A homeowner in the state of West Virginia, right off the bat, you know that they're not talking to you if you rent, and you just tune it all out. Nowadays, with digital marketing, you can actually target homeowners in the state of West Virginia pretty effectively, so you don't usually need that opening hook in the same way. Your hooks can be a little bit more detailed and specific. But that's a different discussion. So you need all of your messaging to speak directly to them. So if you're selling sports bras, you're not going to advertise to men. It's straightforward as that, right? You want your target market, you want your targets so that you can address what's their specific problem. You want to speak directly to them. And then you want to find out, where do these people hang out? This can all be done with simple research by asking your friends, or more advanced research that you would get from an organization that does market research. Where do they hang out? What do they have in common? What are the things that they enjoy doing? My favorite story of all time when it comes to understanding target markets, and I think this is probably the best story, one of the greatest marketing stories of the 20th century, is Charles Atlas. Do any of you know who Charles Atlas is? So Charles Atlas was a bodybuilder way back in the 20s. And it was very common where they would create these bodybuilding courses and they would sell them in bodybuilding magazines. It was really common. This was even before Schwarzenegger or any of that kind of stuff. This was all way, way back, okay? This was all in the 20s and 30s. So they would have bodybuilding magazines, physical culture magazines, health and fitness magazines, and then they would sell their course, and they were usually mail-order courses. Well, Charles Atlas's course was just the same as all these other courses, and he sold them, and he was getting to the point where he wasn't making any money, so he thought, well, maybe, the course thing just isn't for me. So he went to this advertising agency, and he met a guy named Charles Roman. Charles Roman was young. He was only 21, and he gave Charles an opportunity. And he kind of liked what he was doing, but he said, okay, I tell you what, Charles, I will give you half of my company if you just handle all of the business processing for me. Okay, great. So what did Charles Roman do? Charles Roman created this ad. The insult that made the man out of Mac. Now this story you're probably familiar with. This is the story of the kid that goes to the beach and the bully kicks sand in his face, and then he gets threatened and his girlfriend says, oh, it's okay, you're just a small man. So what does he do? Well, he calls Charles Atlas. And he gets the bodybuilding course, and he goes home, and then later he's full of muscles, and he goes back to the beach and punches the bully right in the snout. And what happens? The girl walks away with him, right? The most successful bodybuilding course ever in history. Why was it so successful? It was it was the exact same course that he was selling. He didn't change the course. He found a target market. His target market was adolescent boys. They had a problem. They were being bullied. All adolescent boys know this. You get bullied, you get made fun of, you want to get the girl. So what was he able to do? By targeting, instead of advertising in muscle magazines, he starts advertising in comic books. What kind of stuff was advertised in comic books back then? X-ray specs, Pop-Tarts, candy. That's the kind of stuff that was being advertised in those magazines. So you've got this whole new audience. You've got this whole audience of insecure young men that are looking to be strong, healthy, to be, every guy has this exact same story of the bully that, kicks sand in their face. Every guy can relate to that. So every boy can relate to that. And then all you got to do is you just, mail order, and, next thing you know, you're kicking sand in the bully. So this is this perfect example. And then Charles Atlas ended up selling the whole company to Charles Roman because he made so much money off of it. But to this day, that ad still echoes through, and you can still hear. So this was like from the 40s. This is a very, very old ad. So that just shows you the power that you get when you can target a market. When you can target people, you speak directly, you solve their problems, you speak directly to them, and you provide them solutions. Most important thing, you provide them with solutions. So the anatomy of a compelling offer involves a clear promise, a time-sensitive incentive, and a guarantee that reassures your audience of the risk-free value that they're getting. And that's from Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy, he's got a whole book series called The No BS Selling System. And he's very straightforward, and he's great. He's a great read if you ever want to look at some stuff on marketing. Let's talk about offers. An offer is always answering the question, what's in it for me? So that's the question that you're always answering. So, and this is a little tough love for everybody. Nobody cares how long your business has been open. Nobody cares how long you've been working. Nobody cares how hard you worked last week. Nobody cares about you at all. They're only interested in one thing, what's in it for me? So if I give you $20, what am I going to get back? If I give you $1,000, what am I going to get back? If I give you my phone number, what am I going to get back? If I give you a review on Google, what am I going to get back? That's all anybody's ever thinking, I'm going to be honest with you. Most people aren't going to be honest with you. That's what you have to answer. You always have to be answering that with your offer. Your offer needs to be simple. It needs to be clear. I had an exercise recently with some colleagues where they talked about an elevator pitch, and the assignment was to come up with a 60-second elevator pitch. Nobody's listened to a 60-second elevator pitch. I've got news for you. If you've got 60 seconds, you need to spend 55 seconds talking to that person about their problems. And then the last 5 seconds saying, I can solve that for you. So stay away from this idea of complicated things. Keep it simple. Keep it basic. Keep it clear. Keep it precise. Solve a problem. Now, your business might be able to solve all of that person's problems. Might be able to, Let's say, you're in the health and wellness, you do massage, you do nutritional coaching, you've got a gym that they can, you do all these things. You can solve all their problems. You don't need to tell them that. Just find one problem, their most pressing problem, solve that for them, okay? And focus on that one problem. It could be, now, as I mentioned before that the offer could be something you want them to do. Maybe the offer is to come have a consultation. That's not free. You got to get over this idea. Them calling you isn't free. They've got to take time out of their day. They've got to quit what they're doing, or they've got to come to your store, or they've got to book an appointment, and then they actually have to set their alarm, and then they've got to put it on the calendar, and then they've actually got to show up. Oh my God, that's a lot of stuff. So get over this idea that asking them everything's an offer. Anything you're asking somebody to do is an offer. What do they get out of it? Okay, if I call you, what am I going to get? Am I just going to get a sales pitch for your product that I don't need? I'm not interested. Okay, that's what you're going to run into. What are you going to do for me? If I call you, what are you going to give me? If I give you my email, you're just going to send me a bunch of spam that I don't want. If I give you my phone number, you're just going to blast my phone with text messages every day that I'm not interested in. What's in it for me? So let me give you a couple ideas of some offers. Really good offers, really simple offers. So let's say you have a roofing company. Roof is a high-ticket item. That's $5,000 to $10,000. You're never ever going to walk up to somebody and say, will you give me $5,000? I'll give you a new roof. They're going to say no, get lost. So how about $100 for gutter cleaning? That's a great offer. Everybody needs their gutters cleaned, and nobody likes to get out on ladders. They're dangerous. So $100, I got $100. I ain't got $5,000, but I got $100, and I have a need. So now the trick is, once you get out there, clean up the gutters, then you go ahead and prepare a report for them on their roof. Now that's the other thing. Once they, they're going to need to put some money aside or figure out financing. Nobody's got $10,000 sitting around for their new roof. So that's going to be a long process. You're going to meet with them. You're going to build know, like, and trust with them. And then eventually, when they're ready to buy that roof, they're going to talk to you because you've been so good for them. A great offer that you'll see all the time from all of these places that sell, that do like car parts and stuff, free battery testing. Doesn't cost them anything. You bring your vehicle in. Everybody's worried about their battery. Your car's over 3 years old. You need to get your battery tested. Well, once you get that battery, we'll go ahead and run a diagnostic while we're at it, do all this other stuff. And you'll also notice a lot of these places, they loan out tools for free. You know why they loan out tools for free? Is because if you need that tool, then you need to buy parts from them, right? So those offers are what's in it for me? What's in it for me to come get a tool? I get a free tool. And then you can sell them products once you've made that offer to them. Now, if you just offer to sell them, whatever it is, they've got all kinds of barriers of entry to there, especially with car parts, because it might be a specialized tool, it might be this. They might just end up taking it to a shop. You don't want them to take it to a shop. You want them to buy it from you. So you give them the free tools. And the one thing that I always tell people to stay away from, that most people offer, is a free consultation. You've got to name it something else, and it's really all comes down to messaging, whatever that is. Maybe it's for me, I do an advertising audit. That's really just a free consultation. Don't tell anybody. But I do an advertising audit where I'll take a look at that. There's a lot of people that work in like website development that they'll do a website scan, tell you where you need to improve on your website. That's an offer, right? So there's lots of that, but don't do a consultation. Those you don't want to call it that. You don't want to say free estimates. You don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. You want to do something that sounds like it's valuable. Some kind of the only exception to that I found is with attorneys, because attorneys saying like something along the lines of a free consultation or something like that usually has a little bit more weight because their time is valuable. You know what I mean? But so that's a little bit of a niche. And you will find that in some industries. Some industries, certain language is really powerful and means like a specific thing. But for the most part, you don't want to say free consultation. Or you don't want to say free estimates or something like that. You want to do something like a free scan or a complimentary scan or a complimentary report, something like that, something you can generate for them, as opposed to just sit down with me for 20 minutes. I don't want to sit down with you for 20 minutes. I'm too busy. Now, one of the things that people always get into with the offer is they want to offer everything. They want to offer something big. Yeah, but I do massages. I do the health and wellness stuff. I even sell healthy bran muffins every morning. Like I've got all this stuff. I want to offer them all this stuff. Stay small, stay specific. But what about McDonald's? McDonald's has a menu a mile long. They've got all kinds of offers, and they're the most popular. They're the biggest company in the world. Yeah, not always. This is McDonald's original menu. This is how they became the biggest company in the world. They had like 9 items. You wanted a grilled chicken? You didn't go to McDonald's. If you wanted a steak? You didn't go to McDonald's. You want a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a shake, and some fries, you went to McDonald's. And that's how they made billions and billions of dollars. Small, specific. I want McDonald's. And everybody like you associate McDonald's with this simplified food now. Like this was an innovation. People don't realize this. Like the idea of going to a diner and only having 5 or 6 items to choose from, that was foreign. Like people would, when McDonald's first opened, people would go there and say, I'd just take a halibut, please. They didn't know like you could only order certain things. Like what place did that? Like diners were diners. They sold food, not McDonald's. McDonald's sold 9 items and that was it. And they made a fortune off of it. And then, once they got big, then they started adding. And they added things very slowly. If you look at the history of McDonald's, the filet of fish didn't come until the 50s. They stayed very specific. And that one's a great case study, too.